Good morning and thank you for joining us here on Face the State. I'm Tracy Townsend. We start with an in-depth look at that fallout from the train derailment in East Palestine. It's been weeks since the train carrying dangerous chemicals derailed and leaked all of those chemicals into the Ohio River. This is raising questions about the safety of the drinking water and the air. People say that they're afraid to go back to their homes. Governor Mike DeWine and other state leaders tried to address those concerns and put it back on Norfolk Southern to make it right.
Norfolk Southern is responsible for this problem. We fully expect them to live up to what the CEO committed to me, and that is that they will pay for everything. If they don't, we've got an attorney general here and that will file a lawsuit. So, look, they're responsible for this. They did it. This is the impact on this community is huge. Not just the physical problem that might be caused, but the inconvenience, the terror, many things. So yes, we've already seen lawsuits filed. I'm sure there'll be more lawsuits filed. Even though some rail cars did have hazardous material on board, and while most of them did not, that's why it was not categorized as a high hazardous material train. Frankly, if this is true, and I'm told it's true, this is absurd, and we need to look at this, and Congress needs to take a look at how these things are handled.
The U.S. EPA administrator visited East Palestine this week, trying to ease the concerns of the people who live there.
Nearly 2 weeks ago, the residents of East Palestine experienced a terrible incident with the derailment of train cars carrying hazardous substances. This incident has understandably shaken this community to its core, forcing families to temporarily leave their homes, worry about their health and safety of their children, and even question the information that they're receiving from all of us. The community has questions and they deserve answers. I want the community to know that we hear you, we see you, and that we will get to the bottom of this. I've told residents, including Ms. Christina Ferguson, whose home I just left and had the privilege of meeting with earlier today, that I understand her fears and I understand her family's worries. I'm a father, first and foremost, a husband, and the son of parents over the age of 70. All families need to know that they are safe. All families deserve access to clean air and safe drinking water.
I am asking that they trust the government, and that's hard. We know that there is a lack of trust, which is why the state and the federal government have pledged to be very transparent.
Ohio lawmakers in the nation's capital sent letters to the EPA and the NTSB to step in for the East Palestine train derailment. U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown and J.D. Vance both went to the small town to talk with the people who are impacted. J.D. Vance says he's working on legislation to prevent problems like this from happening in the future.
I don't want to let Congress off the hook here, because Congress can legislate a solution to this problem, and that's exactly what I'm going to try to do. We should have some legislation coming out to that effect here in the next few days. But look, the Department of Transportation can act on this issue too. This is a regulatory problem and a legal problem. So the Department of Transportation could implement regulations that would have these trains declared high hazardous. I think they should do that. It is frightening. It's a frightening situation. And my guidance to people is to continue to drink the bottled water. We don't know. I mean, look, people say that the air is clean. I would like to believe that that's true. I also have been here for all of 3 hours, and it doesn't smell great to me, especially when we first arrived. This morning, I was immediately struck by the smell of the air. So, look, this is thankfully The air problem, I think, is a much shorter term problem than the water problem. But we have to make sure long term we're testing the air, we're testing the water, and again, we're trying to understand what level of chemical is dangerous to people.
Democrats at the State House got together with environmental representatives, health leaders, and first responders, and they talked through some of the questions they say they still feel are unanswered. And they came up with some strategies to try to take action. They say they want to make sure both the state and federal government are offering all of the resources possible on this. And they want to make sure they find ways to strengthen the statewide emergency response to these types of disasters. But the key will be working across the aisle when the Democrats are by far in the minority.
We may be small, but we are mighty. And one of the things that I think is that this is not a Democrat or a Republican issue. This is a human rights, Ohio citizens' right to be feeling safe and secure in their homes. And I believe that, again, we're coming from the perspective of how can we help to augment, how can we help, work with what town area. And so she's also closest to, that particular area of the state. And so what we're looking at is as a town that is, and the citizens of this town that are being hit with a big question mark. Not only whether the water is safe to drink, whether the air is safe to breathe, whether or not it's really safe for them to return home just now, because while we're getting reports that things are fine, do we really know that they are? Do we know what the long-term effect is going to be?
And now the largest injury firm in the United States is suing Norfolk Southern for medical monitoring for residents. We talked with an attorney from Morgan & Morgan.
As far as what we can do, we can help pressure those kinds of institutions, including EPA, including local regulatory agencies, to be more transparent about the information that's getting out there, because these residents are hearing all clear and they know that's not true. They have bloody noses and skin rashes and they're sick to their stomachs. You can take a random sample from a random location at a random time with a very high detection limit and not find anything.
And he says his clients are already suffering from health issues, including light nausea, headaches, and skin blisters. He says the train company needs to be held accountable. We've also been hearing so many questions and concerns about the chemicals this train was carrying and both the short-term and long-term effects. 10 TV's Brittany Bailey went to an Ohio State University professor who specializes in indoor environmental quality to get some answers.
Now people are able to come back to their homes, and there's still a lot of open questions in terms of what happened in terms of the chemical release into the environment, where those chemicals went, and how long they're likely to persist for.
CBS News did a breakdown of some of the chemicals that were on board that train that derailed in East Palestine and their impacts. First up is the vinyl chloride. The colorless gas is used to make PVC and is linked to an increased risk of a rare and deadly form of liver cancer. Officials worried that the burn would lead to hydrogen chloride in the air, but as of Monday, there had been no detections of vinyl chloride or hydrogen chloride in the homes screened. Then there was butyl acrylate. It's a combustible liquid that can cause irritation to the eyes, skin, and upper respiratory system. One train car was carrying it and lost its entire load in the derailment. A Cincinnati city manager memo showed low levels of it were found in the Ohio River downstream from the incident. Ethylhexyl acrylate is used to make plastics and is possibly carcinogenic to humans. The one train car that was carrying it was breached, and the amount of product still in the car was marked as pending. And finally, there was benzene, a colorless liquid used in making plastics. It is both a carcinogen and a mutagen, meaning it can cause genetic mutations. Benzene was not actively being carried on the train, but there was residue from past shipments.
A lot of these chemicals are fairly short-lived in the body, and so they don't tend to persist. They don't tend to persist in the food chain either, like some other chemicals do. So the environmental assessment is probably the most important thing that the EPA can measure to also make sure that they can help prevent these exposures from occurring in the first place.
And that was 10 TV's Brittany Bailey reporting. This situation also raises some questions about the potential impact on our water and air quality here in Columbus. So far, experts say our area has not and will mostly not be impacted by the derailment because of where our water comes from. 10 TV's Ashley Bornanson explains.
For Ohio, Columbus is in the middle, and our source water watersheds are here kind of heading up to the north of Columbus.
Rod Dunn, the manager of the Water Quality Assurance Lab for the city of Columbus, says Central Ohio water comes from the Upper Scioto and Big Walnut watersheds, not the Ohio River. He says the water is so safe and clean to drink, you don't even need a filter.
I don't filter it. I just fill up water at the tap and add a couple ice cubes because I like it cold.
But if there ever was a local spill, they have procedures in place. He says first the Ohio EPA and watershed rangers notify his team.
Then we have multiple barriers within treatment that can take that out. Like we use powdered activated carbon, and it acts like a sponge to absorb any organic compounds, and then they're precipitated out.
Experts from OSU's agriculture department also say they are not anticipating our water, air, or fish to be impacted by the event.
I don't know whether this is historically the worst ecological events, because we don't know so far. We are still assessing the whole impact of this event.
Columbus Fire says they have a highly trained hazardous material team and work with first responders to tackle these types of situations.
We are prepared for all hazards. We have kits to stop leaks on rail cars, on semi trucks, down to 150-pound cylinders. We can sample, we can overpack.
So we know what hazardous materials are being transported and stored here within our community. And we've been using that information for a number of years.
Ashley Bornanson reporting for us here on Face the State. Now, if you have concerns about the water quality in Columbus, you're welcome to reach out to the Water Quality Assurance Lab. Still to come this morning on Face the State, beating the stigma to save lives. You'll meet the Ohio figure skater who says her passion saved her. Welcome back. A $1 million federal grant is going to the Columbus Metropolitan Housing Authority. It's going to launch the Ready, Set, Rise initiative. The 2-year pilot program will help hundreds of families who live in public housing get through the so-called benefit cliff, a barrier that keeps many families living in poverty.
An individual experiences an increase in their income, but that increased income reduces in a large loss in government benefits, overall creating a financial loss for the household. Many individuals hit these cliffs as they're pursuing economic self-sufficiency, and it becomes a barrier, almost impossible to proceed without risking housing stability for the family.
For more information about CMHA's Ready, Set, Rise initiative, please contact the Rise Center at the email that's on your screen. Construction is underway on a one-of-a-kind treatment facility in Ohio. The group, Volunteers of America, is building the Family-Focused Recovery Center in the city. It will be ready for mothers who can stay there with their children while getting the help they need to get substance abuse treatment.
We see better outcomes when women are able to bring their kids into treatment with them. They are more motivated to stay into treatment and to start a path of recovery.
Construction is now underway, funded by a nearly $2 million donation from Humana. When the renovations are complete, the building will include 34 beds and community spaces, including kitchen, dining, and laundry facilities. The goal is to open early next year. There is a statewide effort to help people beat the stigma of addiction. It comes in many forms and can take control of anyone's life. Reporter Amanda Fay introduces us to an Ohio woman who nearly lost her life and, along with it, her dream.
Fell in love with it. It was my passion, so I wanted to do it forever.
Forever almost came to an end 3 years ago for Nicole Horosejski. Her passion? Skating. But a horrific crash in 2020 meant Nicole couldn't even lace up her skates, never mind glide across the ice.
Lost the ability to walk. I broke 6 bones and had emergency surgery, and I couldn't walk for 3 months.
Nicole was driving herself to rehab when she had a seizure from alcohol withdrawal.
I never thought I'd skate again.
Nicole started skating when she was 10, first as an individual skater, and later she joined a synchronized skating team. Drugs and alcohol were far from her mind as a dedicated young athlete.
I got away from skating a little bit and got into that, and I used it as a stress relief instead of skating as my stress relief and my passion. Yeah, I fell into addiction at that point.
The addiction sucked the life out of Nicole. She says she was no longer having fun or finding any sort of balance. She went to treatment, but didn't give it her all. Her near-death experience became a major wake-up call.
Thanks to social media and that stigma kind of being broken through a little bit, I saw, that this wasn't that abnormal, that other people had addictions, and it could be somebody who looked like a figure skater or who was a star student.
Nicole started going to AA, got a sponsor, got support to get clean. After months and months of physical therapy, she got back on the ice. And then started skating again with her synchronized team, Allegro.
We went to the Midwestern sectionals and we placed first. We are Midwestern champions, and we're going to nationals next month.
Nicole also got a job working at a recovery center, helping others through their journey, showing them they are not alone.
It's okay to ask for help. It seems very scary and maybe like you're stuck in it, but you're not. You fall and you get back up. But reach out for somebody's hand to help you up.
Now, if you or someone you love needs help with addiction, you can get access to 24-hour help. Just call the number on your screen, 1-800-662-HELP. A new status for Narcan, that's the medication used to quickly reverse an opioid overdose. It's now recommended for over-the-counter sale. The Food and Drug Advisory Committee on Wednesday voted unanimously for the recommendation. Committee members heard testimony from experts, including one who cited the increase of fentanyl overdose deaths among teenagers. Last September, researchers at The Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center and College of Medicine reported a 113% increase in the years of life lost among adolescents in the United States because of unintentional drug overdoses. Ohio lawmakers in Washington, D.C. are honoring Black History Month. We will outline the bills they are trying to pass. And we'll introduce you to the Columbus man hitting his dreams by using 2 scales. This week, the Senate passed a resolution celebrating Black History Month and the important contributions made by Black Americans throughout U.S. history. U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown co-sponsored that piece of legislation. Meantime, Congresswoman Joyce Beatty is working on a bill that's aimed at celebrating African American history in schools.
I'm very pleased with this legislation because it also allows us to have students who participate in tours at the African American Museum, to have that as a part of the curriculum. And I think it's so important that we do not get confused with so many states and schools attacking African American history and Black History Month where we do it. Black history is American history. And wouldn't we want our students, when we're in the midst still of COVID-19, to know that there was a very young Black researcher who was at the forefront of helping us get through COVID-19? Wouldn't we want our children to know, when we talk about justice, that there is a Black woman who sits in the highest court in this nation? And wouldn't we want our children to know that there is a vice president of these United States of America that's a Black woman? That's not Black history. That's American history.
This Black History Month, 10 TV is taking time to highlight music from hip hop to country. The Black imprint is in many genres. 10 TV's Richard Solomon introduces us to a Black opera singer who says the greatest stories can start from the most uncertain circumstances.
There's something about the sound of music that's always brought Justin Swain home. You probably are not able to understand the words, but the melody
absolutely in my escape
goes far beyond what he's singing.
I'm classically trained. I've been singing operatically for about the past 10 years.
He's performed in symphonies across Ohio for years, and his sound is something you don't normally hear in the Black community.
I grew up on Motown, listening to Michael Jackson. That was always what was playing in the house, because when we think about the Black experience, typically we are not exposed to classical music.
And by no means was his journey crystal clear. To really get a grasp of his story, you have to go back to where it starts. In Columbus's Hilltop neighborhood, violence and poverty.
I lived here at 2278 for 7 years.
Sometimes overshadow the people who call this neighborhood home.
There'd be a house here, sunroom on the left side of the house, a garage back there. I haven't been here in almost 30 years.
A hard upbringing. His father, a drug dealer. And Swain didn't know how his future would play out. But it was thanks to several of his teachers who saw a bright future in him. Phil Wallace, playing one of the first songs he taught Swain at Columbus West High School.
I wanted him to be in music because that's what made him happy.
He was just one of his impacts that helped push this young artist to pursuing music.
No matter what he was going through or no matter what kind of day he had, the music always saved him.
And just as his future was starting to shape up, well, life happened.
And I got that phone call from Capitol letting me know 4 days before I was supposed to move in that one of the need-based scholarships I was not eligible for.
He couldn't go to college and ended up walking away from music for some time. Then a few years later, he enrolled here at Columbus State Community College to major in not music, but management technology. Swain had to fill a credit for class and stumbled across music. One of his professors heard him play.
From that point on, all of my coursework switched over to music theory and history and composition.
And that's what led him all the way here. At Ohio University.
When a man writes his mother every Sunday, pays his bills before they're due.
Teaching students of his own, like Colette Alfonso.
Just hearing a story just like lights a fire under you, because it really does show that like anybody can do this.
What's the takeaway of your story?
What you were born into does not define who you are. It does not define the path of your life. Where there is a will, there is a way, and we can absolutely quote the great Muhammad Ali, impossible is nothing.
That was Richard Solomon reporting. The Ohio Black Expo is coming back in full force. After 2 years of limited programming because of the COVID-19 pandemic, it's going to be at the Columbus Convention Center on Memorial Day weekend. The focus will be on uplifting Black-owned businesses and entrepreneurs. This week, organizers talked about what you can expect, including some special guests.
The two big names we have right now are KRS-One. We're helping, he's going to help us celebrate 50 years of hip hop. And also he's, of course, from the Bronx, the Boogie Down as he calls it. And we also have the Queen of Percussion, another legend in the entertainment industry, Sheila E.
More than 10,000 people are expected to attend the Black Expo in May. Well, we certainly wish you a great week, and thank you for joining us here on Face the State today. Take care, everybody.